Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we're going to have a brief look at the new upcoming Fedora 38 beta. This actually dropped about a month ago, and everybody else went out and got their videos done and out of the way. So I wanted to go ahead and have a look at it myself, and other videos got in my way as I want to look around. But that's okay, because GNOME 44, which is the biggest absolute change in this release, was still in the process of development, and the beta is scheduled to come out for that soon as well. And what I wanted to do here is we're going to talk a little bit about some of the changes, and then we're going to jump on over into the virtual machine and have a look at what the build actually looks like. So let's go ahead and start by looking at the best article that I found on what the changes are was from ZDNet. So Fedora 38 beta has arrived, heralds a spectacular upcoming release. Really, the biggest change overall in Fedora 38 is the addition of GNOME 44, which itself is still in beta. It might be out of beta by now, but it was in beta at least at the period of time that this had just released. So they're still working on releasing some components, and we're going to have a look at what some of those are going to be as well on a separate. But really, that's the biggest thing. This is pretty much the list of things that is not related to GNOME 44 specifically. Kernel 6.2. So we have the latest release of the kernel. Great news for anybody running the latest and greatest hardware. This is going to support it very well. The updates for non-GNOME spins, we have XFCE 4.8, KDE Plasma 527, Mate 126, LXQT 120. So we have latest versions, new Budgie and Sway spins. Wallpapers, we'll have a look at what those are briefly. And then there is initial support for a unified kernel, all-in-one EFI binary with all the different elements. Significant improvements for the live media, and, just upgrades to some of your basic software. Of course, we have updated packages, Firefox 110. I think 111 is out now. I think the new Firefox is an absolute abomination. It needs burnt with fire. But what are we going to do? Go to Chrome? Lord help us. It's like voting for a president. All right, so from the app, you can enable, disable location services, automatic problem reporting, enable third parties. That is dealing with the Flatpak setup inside of the GNOME shell. Has a lot of functions. They talk a little bit about that down here, and how does this work. So without reading through the rest of that, we're just going to go ahead and boot this up on a machine. So I'm installing this on a Boxes machine on a laptop so we can test out some things. And I found the 3-finger touchpad functions are not working, at least on my Dell Inspiron, although the 2-finger touchpad ones do. We'll have a brief look at GNOME 44 since this is the biggest overall change, and I think this is a great place to talk about the GNOME 44 latest changes here. And so inside of here, we now have a grid view for the file changer. So if you're selecting an image that is, you're looking to select an image from some select file dialog box, you used to have just a list, and now we have the option for thumbnails as well as lists. And it looks like the WebP and SVG support enabled. Bonus! I'm actually noticing more and more images are WebP, which the only thing I have on my website development computer that actually reads those is GIMP, so I have to transition everything through GIMP in the way. SVG, of course, also works on Inkscape, so I have a few options for that. But it's really nice to see the ability, if you're selecting an image, you can see, or some other file, you can grab the file type based on the thumbnail rather than just the name of the file. That was a big requested feature that was recently put in. We have a new settings panel for device security. We can look at secure boot. We can look at hardware protection level, Linux kernel lockdown, UEFI secure boot options. I didn't actually look at these as we grabbed the information there from the spin up. So forgot to check on that one, but that is something that is down there now. Accessibility options have changed, so you can see the accessibility menu, and then based on which accessibility options you need, you'll have individual settings for that. Sound. I didn't notice a ton of differences in the sound. Overall volume control has been moved to a separate window, making more commonly used input-output controls easier. I still would like to see an option to have better sound options directly from the GNOME panel rather than having to transition into the settings in order to manipulate the sound. But that's me. Hopefully they're working on this. They did actually give us Bluetooth support in there as well. Here's the mouse touchpad things. I do highlight this a little bit. So the mouse and touchpad, addition of videos, which demonstrate the different options available. So what do these mean? We give us more clarity about what they are. Enhance quick settings. This is in the panel. Bluetooth quick settings button. You'll be able to see this. I enable Bluetooth support through my VM so we can see what that looks like now. Same thing that the Ubuntu had in the latest beta of Ubuntu we looked at, as they're also shipping with GNOME 44 in their release in a couple of weeks. And so with that, what we are seeing is that when you pull this panel down, you can connect your Bluetooth devices directly rather than having going into the settings mode. Why we can't do the same with sound, I have no earthly idea. But hey, let's start pushing that line. Maybe we can get that sound in that GNOME panel too. Streamlining some software. So allegedly things are going to work a little bit better. Flatpak runtimes are now automatically removed when not needed in order to save disk spaces. So that's actually good. And then just a few other file improvements as well, and a few extra settings. You can now share Wi-Fi passwords using a QR code. This is something that Ubuntu highlighted as well, so that's going to be something. Thunderbolt settings will only show when there's Thunderbolt hardware. That's good, so you have a little bit less clutter inside of your setting panels. And now you can configure WireGuard VPNs in addition to just OpenVPN. So you have a few other options inside of there. So you can actually flip through this article. I'll go ahead and put both of these articles down there so you can read about them. These are the best articles that I found on each one of these settings. But with that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the installation. So the installation is going to be the exact same installation window we've seen before, so we're not going to walk through that in any detail. I did not see anything in there that has changed. Now on first boot, you get into a welcome screen setup. This is where you're going to set up your username, your password, and if you want to do any online things. And another feature we have, this is not brand new to this version, but it is fairly new to Fedora. I think the last beta we looked at, it was the first time this included it. You have the option to enable RPM Fusion and other third-party repositories out of the box. We also have the ability to further disable any proprietary software from showing up. So if you enable those and you do not want a lot of proprietary things showing up, you can disable that inside of the settings. We'll go ahead and talk about that a little bit more detail on the actual build through. But when you are setting up, you have a lot of these other newer features and functions, and then we jump right on into the tour. So from there, let's go ahead and look at the full desktop once it's installed. All right, so coming on into the login screen, we do have our settings down here. We can do GNOME, GNOME Classic, GNOME on X, or GNOME Classic on X, or GNOME on X. We're just going to keep the default, which should be the current GNOME 44 on Wayland. Let's go ahead and enter my super secret password. That's definitely not 123. And we land right onto the desktop right on over here. So when we first boot the system up, we have a start a tour. So this is learn about the key features in Fedora 38. Of course, this is, a beta, as you all know, being this far into the video. Press the super key to open Windows and apps. So there's our super key. You can open this up for Windows and apps. I do like the new GNOME layout. I mean, this is not new to 44. It's new a few versions ago. I really do like the new GNOME layout. It is really a big benefit here. Just type in the overview to search to launch apps or find things. So if I were to come over here and just start typing, having entered the meta key first, you can see it's going to do searches. It's going to say, here's some software options, Firefox. Notable, it's not going onto the internet for anything like that. We'll just go ahead and push escape to get out of there. And then keep on top, easily organize windows with workspace views. That is the workspace view here. You can organize your windows there. Now, this one here on a touchpad, use three fingers for vertical swipes. This does not seem to work on my system. So my test system here is a Dell Inspiron with a Ryzen 5 processor. We'll show you the about system in a minute. The 2-finger scroll to scroll up and down, that works. The 3-finger functions that it suggests do not actually work for me. I don't know if is that a function of the virtual machine we're in? Is that a function of an error in the release? I don't know, but for whatever reason, the 3-finger up and down is not working on my particular touchpad. Of course, 3-finger left, right for workspaces, that also does not work for me. And that's it. Have a nice day. So now we have landed here, and as we said, GNOME 44 is your biggest overall changes, and it does appear that, let me go ahead and activate my Bluetooth inside of my virtual machine here. We just need to go into our properties for our machine, and let's go ahead and we need to turn on, let's turn on that. This would be our webcam integration. We'll go ahead and keep that off because I have my top down. You have the USB audio codec. We're not going to change that because that is what we're using to record our audio right now. But this guy here will enable the Bluetooth. So let's go ahead and do that. And now you'll see that Bluetooth functionality is over here. Wireless would be here if we had it configured, if we weren't running a virtual machine, which passes not the wireless card through, but the network as internet. But you'll see that I do have access now to Bluetooth, so I can access Bluetooth settings right here from the panel now without having to go directly on into the settings. I did say I was going to say information about the computer. So here is the relevant information. If anything in here tells you why I am not able to use it with the 3-finger swipe, there is the information. Of course, Linux kernel 6.2, so that's very good there. And the GNOME 44, I really do like a lot of what they're doing here. So you see the wallpaper here is actually dynamic for the styles. So you can see as I toggle the dark styles, the background colors behind the wallpaper are changing. We do have power mode for balanced and power saver modes. I don't see easily a way to get to your power mode settings from right here, although it might be up in the settings. We do have some basic volume controls here, nothing major, and we do have now a built-in system here to enable to do either the section or the whole screen or a specific window if I had more windows open. And then we can do a video or we can do a picture, and we can show or hide the pointer or not, and then push this guy here, and that's going to start recording. So having a built-in screen capture device there is actually a really cool thing. Let's go ahead and dig further into the settings. Here's our network. So if you wanted a VPN, it'd be right here. Proxies right here. This is not detecting the wireless simply because we are running through on a virtual machine. As far as Bluetooth, we can, of course, access that from the menu. And then here we have our default and our dark options. So you have those as good options. Oop, looks like our settings system disappeared. All right. We're going to go ahead and run the report this time because we are running as a beta. And I do like to report the beta issues to the people because it will help them resolve the issues. So go ahead and let that figure itself out. So here's some backgrounds that we have, and you'll see that we have backgrounds that will change based on whether we are light or dark mode. So it gives us what those backgrounds are going to look like on light or versus dark mode. So that's actually a pretty cool feature inside of here. So you can get a chance to see what those look like. Notifications, I don't think anything changed over there. And there's our apps. Here's our privacy if you wanted to go ahead and change anything in there. All right, so for mouse and touch pointers, this is one of the things that is highlighted. You can either do the traditional or the natural. Of course, you can change your information over here. And the touchpad, you can see we have 2-finger, we have edge, we have natural. I did try messing around with all these when I was testing out the touchpad. None of these actually seemed to work very well for me. So inside of there, that is what we have. All right, if this is going to take too much of our computer bandwidth, let's just go ahead and stop it for now. All right, so the next thing we want to do is let's have a look at our software. So when you set this up the first time, you have the option to enable or disable the the third-party repositories, as we saw earlier. We see I have 37 updates. We're not going to push any updates. I have a fairly slow internet right where I'm at, but you can see it's going to tell us exactly what things need an update. And then if you go into your settings over here, we can turn on or off automatic updates, turn on or automatic software, and then we can show only free apps. So if you are a proprietary a non-proprietary person, so you do not like seeing any apps, this is not free cost-wise. This is free as in the philosophy of freedom. If you want to only see apps that are completely free and open source, you can toggle this guy on. It's going to disable any of those applications that are that have any proprietary code at all. Of course, we can hit our software repositories. So you can see that Fedora Flatpaks is enabled and Flatpak testing is disabled. And then we have a variety of different updates over here. You'll also notice the Linux vendor firmware services. So if there's any firmware adjustments, you can make any firmware adjustments in your software. That's really nice. And then enabling new repositories. And then we have a few other things. We have Google Chrome here. So if you do not want any Google Chrome, turn that guy off. You'll have to contend with it in FlatHub, but there is a Flatpak version and there is a repository version with the Google Chrome repository. This is the RPM Fusion options and the non-free NVIDIA, the non-free Steam. So these are only enabled if you enable that on the initial setup. But these are some of those things that people used to a long time ago. In fact, those are the first videos I had on this channel with Fedora. You'd have to install Fedora and then walk through a checklist of like 30 things to make the system usable. These new versions of Fedora are taking care of all of that, making Fedora a very, very powerful system for anybody just coming on over. So, of course, you do a search for VLC, then you will get VLC showing up in the repository. Pardon my very slow internet connection right where I'm at. So here we can click in on VLC, and then you can see the source. This is from FlatHub. And if we search for something else, let's look for like Kdenlive. I can never spell that right for whatever reason. And then here is Kdenlive, and then you'll see we have an RPM version, which is the non-free repository, and we have the Flatpak version. So you can go ahead and do either one of these that you would like. So you can search for any form of software that you want and easily choose if you want the Flatpak repository, RPM versions, all sorts of things like that. So that is a fun feature within the system here. As far as the default software, this is what we have. We have just the basic package for LibreOffice. We have Rhythmbox. We have a basic text editor, boxes, some simple utilities. So we have our disks. We have, there's our calculator. And let's have a brief look at our system resources here. So you'll see on our system resources, it's using about 2.3 gigs right now. So it's not the lightest Linux distro on the block, but it is certainly something that something that's going to work. Here's our tour. We saw that earlier, and just seeing if there's anything else in here we want to have a look at. There's a Fedora Media Writer. Okay, so select an ISO image. So if you want to, it looks like if you want to burn an ISO image, you can go ahead and do that. So you can select your files or you can download automatically. So selecting Fedora releases, you can do the official editions, emerging, spins, and labs. So then you can choose what you'd like to download here. So if you want to go ahead and create an ISO for whatever you want out of the Fedora options, you have them. So that's actually pretty sweet. Of course, you have the option to use select ISO file. You should be able to burn any ISO file that you have. So this is a nice feature that is fairly new. First time I've actually seen that on a Fedora build. So hopefully that is something that we see. So over here, this is what we have as far as Fedora. This pretty much covers all of the fun new features. And let me know if you have any other questions or any other thoughts or comments about this release. And let me know if you use Fedora on a regular basis and if you're going to go ahead and get this guy installed. Let me know all that kind of stuff in the comments down below. Thanks for watching and hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.